401ks are not as great as you think they are, and I'll show you why. We're going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, as I'm drawing this, I'll be curious to know how long you think 401ks have been around, because I'm 41, and when I got my first corporate job, the 401k with the company match was like the gold standard. So I'm going to answer that question in just a minute. But when we think about the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, all the way up to the late 70s and early 80s, retirement was built around three things. And if you think about a stool, three legs is very sturdy, right? It creates a triangle. And so what you had was investments, you had a pension, and you had Social Security, right? And this system worked really, really well for two big reasons. Number one is that each leg of the stool was totally uncorrelated with the other legs, right? So if I was not very great at investing, that didn't affect my pension at all. And it didn't affect my Social Security at all. Whether or not, my company pension was fully vested or what have you, that didn't affect how much I was getting from Social Security, didn't affect my investments. They were all separate from each other, right? And the other big reason that this system worked really, really well is that you had two different kinds of money at work, okay? So we're going to have a little dotted line here. Your investments, which are your 401ks, your IRAs, your Roths, these are really great accumulation engines. Now, we know that this system isn't the system that's really being used today, right? So what happened? The company is giving pensions. When they were doing that, the average life expectancy was around, 67 years. So you had folks working, then you were paying the pension to them for a couple years where they weren't working, and then they died, and it worked out okay. As people started living longer, and as there became more folks retired, then the ratio, and as the ratio of workers working versus folks retired on the pension started to get imbalanced, companies were like, man, we got to get rid of these pensions. This is costing us a ton of money because we're still paying these salaries essentially to workers who haven't even worked for us for the last 10 years. And so employers said, we don't want to pay these pensions anymore. And so in the late 1970s, 401ks were introduced to the tax code, and they started gaining traction in the early 80s. And that was the employer's way to say, we don't want your retirement to be our problem. We want it to be your problem. And so what we're going to do is we are going to shift that responsibility back to you, and we will give you a match, but now it's your problem. So pensions really started going away, and we really don't see them much now unless you work for the government. In the private sector, it's pretty rare to be getting a pension. Okay, now let's look at the Social Security bucket. Social Security started having a similar kind of problem. It was created in 1935, And at that time, life expectancy was 65 to 67 years old, and there were 45 workers supporting every one retiree. Now we've got life expectancies that are 80 plus, and now there's about two workers for every one retiree. And so there are people that say, like, hey, I don't even think Social Security is going to be around by the time I retire. There are other people who think, well, I might get something from Social Security, but I can't really bet on it. But most people who are still working, unless they're close to retirement, are at least feeling like Social Security is a question mark. It's not something that I can super count on, or that it might be going away altogether, right? And so what happened was our three-legged stool that was very stable, all of a sudden, one leg is gone. Already, that makes things very unstable and shaky. Now there's another leg that might be gone or it might get chopped off. And so what that does is it ends up putting a ton of pressure on our accumulation engine, our investments. Now, all of a sudden, our investments have to do the lion's share of the work in order for retirement to work out the way that we want it to. A successful retirement where we are able to earn more than we spend and we don't run out of money, right? So, all right, let me answer the question. 401ks became popular in the early 1980s. So, if you came out of college in the early 1980s, you're fresh out of college, you get this brand new job, and they're like, hey, here's how retirement's going to work. You're going to put money into this 401k. We're going to match some of that money that you put in, and you get to invest it and let it grow for you until you retire. And you're like, cool. That person is only in their mid 60s now, today. What that means is that the model of using a 401k to get you from birth to death to be the sole retirement vehicle, or the one that holds the most pressure. Yes, there's still some Social Security, but if the 401k is doing the lion's share of the work, that is actually completely unproven, completely untested. These folks are just now starting to retire. They have not made it all the way through retirement with predominantly a 401k doing the heavy lifting. To me, that was totally mind-blowing, because when I started working in corporate, I just thought that 401ks were the gold standard, that was what everyone did. And I thought, like, yes, I have my 401k. I'm doing the company match. I have a little Roth IRA over here. Like, I'm so smart. I'm doing such a great job. And so, not to shame anyone who is in that category. I just I got lucky, and I ended up talking to a wealth strategist who thought about things unconventionally, and I learned other methods to create a new system, a new three-legged stool, so to speak, that's much more stable. Then I became a serial entrepreneur, started multiple seven-figure businesses, and now the wealth strategy piece of my business is that I get to share and help folks with unconventional wealth strategies that help them create more now money and later money. So you're not alone if you're in the boat of, wait, my 401k isn't enough. I thought it was enough too. And I did not know. No one told me that it's a completely unproven system. Okay. So let's talk about the best part and the worst part of 401ks, and how it all works, right? So there are some pros for sure to 401ks. The pros are you get some free money, right? The company match is definitely like the best part of the 401k. Take the free money. Definitely put in the minimum required in order to get that free money from your company. The other thing I like about the 401k is that it's very autopilot. So it creates this system where you get to set money aside for retirement and you're not really thinking about it. It's just automatically coming out of your paycheck. And that's very, very good. I just read a scary stat that like half of millennials have $0, $0 set aside for retirement. And that's scary because even if Social Security holds, for most people, the amount that they're getting from Social Security would put them like way below the poverty line. So there's kind of a coming crisis or coming reckoning, and I really like that 401ks make this autopilot system for you to put money away for retirement. Now, you might say that there's a pro that it comes out pre-tax. Hey, you don't have to pay taxes on it. That's so cool, right? Well, let's talk about the cons, because the tax situation with 401ks, I would argue, is probably one of the biggest cons, because you have to pay tax later. This is a problem. I just read a statistic that a 50-year-old with a $500,000 balance in their 401k could end up paying over $840,000 in taxes throughout their retirement. And that's based on a 7% average return and a 20% average tax rate. So you're not getting out of anything with taxes. All you're doing is kicking the can down the road with the 401k. And there's a way larger bill waiting for you later than the one that you avoided now. So I don't like that at all about the 401k. I would say that's one of the worst parts. There are limitations often on what you get to invest in. I don't really love that about 401ks. It's an accumulation engine, so it's not inherently designed to be a good distribution engine. Not great distribution. I don't love that. I don't love that, because I think if you asked most people, hey, do you want millions of dollars of net worth on paper? Or do you want guaranteed money flowing into your account every month? In retirement, I think we want the income. We want to know that the money is coming and that it's never going to run out. And having this theoretical pot of money, I mean, not theoretical, it is actual money, but having money that's sitting there and we don't know how much we can safely take out without running out creates a lot of anxiety. So it's not a great distribution engine. The other con, all the pressure is on you. I don't love that. I don't love that those of us who have not chosen careers in investing in the stock market have an entire season of our lives being dictated by the performance of the stock market and how good we are at it. That is not my favorite thing. So as we start to wrap this up, let's think big picture here, right? What are we trying to do when we think about retirement savings, right? We've got this now money, and we've got a bucket called later, and we're trying to take a chunk of our now money and move it into the later bucket so that later we can stop working and still have money, right? That's what we're trying to do. I hypothesize that I don't think we really care how big our later bucket is, as much as we want to know that for sure we've got the money to live the lifestyle that we want, and that we've got enough money to more than take care of our expenses, and that money is going to outlive us. We don't want to outlive this bucket of money, right? I think that's what we're really trying to accomplish in retirement. It's about income. And I've talked to enough people now who have a bucket of later money, And I talked to one couple and I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, when you've been saving for retirement, was there a certain amount that you were going for? Is there a certain amount per month that you want to live on? Like, I'm just trying to understand what your goal is. And they were like, oh, well, our goal was just to save as much as possible. I'm like, okay. So how much per month do you think you want in retirement? And they were like, I don't know, like probably at least like $13,000 per month. When I ran the numbers on how much they had already saved, and if that money keeps growing at a very conservative rate, they were gonna be able to spend, like, over $400,000 a year in retirement. So because they didn't know, and they hadn't really thought through their goal, and they didn't know how much money they needed to save in order to match the income that they wanted, they were really scrimping on their now money and taking a huge chunk of their now money and putting it into the later bucket to create way more income than they even wanted or needed. And like, hey, good problem to have, right? Better than the reverse. But the point is, most of us at the end of the day don't really care how big our later bucket is. We care about the income. Are we going to have enough income in retirement to meet our lifestyle? And then if we want to work, great. If we're healthy and we're having fun with our job, awesome. I'm more like, hey, let's get people to the point where they're work optional so that they have the freedom to choose. I think that's a really cool place to be in. So, in a future video, I will show you how much you can safely spend if you're relying solely on investments. If you're relying solely on accumulation engines, I'll go through the math with you and show you how much you can safely take out without running out of money. In the meantime, if you would like to learn more about unconventional wealth strategies and retirement plans, a new way of creating these three-legged stools so that you can have a balance of now money and later money, you can have a balance of accumulation and distribution, drop the word retire in the comments or check the description section for links to more resources. Please like, subscribe, share this video with friends and loved ones, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.